"You're looking for a home and our dad needs a wife," the 9-year-old twins had said to the 42-year-old woman, counting coins to buy bread. Margarita, widowed and working as a housekeeper, never imagined that 2 motherless children could see what she didn't even dare to dream. But when true love bloomed from the wreckage of 2 shattered lives, the entire town rose up against them. "A fat housekeeper doesn't deserve a rancher," they whispered in the streets. Could prejudice destroy the family that God was forming? This is a love story that defied all social conventions, proving that the heart doesn't understand social class. Margarita's weathered hands trembled as she counted the same handful of coins for the 3rd time. $27.50. That's all that stood between her 42-year-old self and complete disaster. The foreclosure notice lay crumpled on her kitchen table like a cruel joke, stamped with red letters screaming, "Final notice." "Dear God, help me," she whispered into the darkness of her tiny apartment, her voice barely audible over the ancient refrigerator's hum. The electricity bill was overdue too, but food came first. Always food first. 8 months ago, she'd been a respectable housewife. Church potlucks, neighborhood barbecues, a modest but comfortable life. Now she was a 42-year-old widow, counting coins like her life depended on it. Because it did. Her husband's sudden heart attack had revealed more than just a weak heart. It exposed gambling debts that buried her old life completely. Margarita pressed her palms against her tired eyes, fighting tears that came too easily these days. Her reflection in the dark window showed a woman she barely recognized, fuller-figured from stress eating cheap food, hair pulled back in a permanent bun, hands rough from scrubbing other people's floors. Tomorrow she'd drive to Riverside Ranch again, clean until her knees screamed, and pretend her dignity wasn't dying a little more each day. She'd smile when the wealthy rancher barely acknowledged her existence, and pray that this job would last. The coins clinked as she slipped them into her worn purse. $27.50. It had to be enough. Tomorrow, at that ranch, 2 little girls would say something that would change everything forever. Before we continue this emotional story, put in the comments below which city you're watching from. It'll be a pleasure to give your comment a little heart. Now let's continue this exciting story. The morning sun felt like mockery as Margarita pulled her beaten Honda into Riverside Ranch's driveway. The sprawling farmhouse looked like a magazine cover. White columns, wraparound porch, flower beds that cost more than her monthly grocery budget. She grabbed her cleaning supplies, wincing as her back protested. 42 felt like 70 these days. David Morrison had hired her 3 weeks ago through the service. Polite enough, but distant, the way wealthy folks treated the help. Instead of David's voice answering her knock, small feet raced toward the door. It swung open, revealing 2 identical faces, 9-year-old twins with sandy braids and sky-blue eyes, Emma and Grace Morrison. "You're the cleaning lady," Emma stated. "Yes, honey." Margarita managed a tired smile. "Is your daddy home?" The twins exchanged a look too grown up for their age. Grace stepped closer, studying Margarita's face with surprising intensity. "You look really sad," Grace observed with brutal childhood honesty. "Like our daddy does when he thinks we're not watching." Margarita's throat tightened. When had someone last asked about her feelings? "I'm just tired, sweetheart." Emma tilted her head. "Our mama used to look tired like that before she got sick and went to heaven." The words hit harder than expected. These little girls understood loss. "We've been watching you," Emma continued matter-of-factly. "You make our house prettier when you clean. You fix the flowers Daddy forgets to water." Grace nodded earnestly. "And you don't break things or steal stuff like the other ladies." Then came the words that would echo in Margarita's heart forever. Emma looked straight into her eyes and said, "You're looking for a home, and our daddy needs a wife." Margarita nearly dropped her bucket. "What did you say?" "We heard Daddy crying last night," Grace whispered. "He thinks we don't know, but we do. He's lonely and you're sad. Maybe you could help each other." The twins' innocent faces held such hope, it broke something inside Margarita's chest. Margarita's hands shook as she gripped her cleaning bucket. The twins' innocent words echoed in her mind. "You're looking for a home and our daddy needs a wife." How could 2 9-year-olds see what adults were too scared to admit? "Girls, you can't just say things like that," she whispered, glancing around nervously. "Your daddy wouldn't want what?" David Morrison's deep voice cut through the morning air like thunder. Margarita's heart nearly stopped. There he stood in the doorway, 6 feet of weathered rancher, flannel shirt rolled up to reveal work-hardened forearms, eyes the same sky blue as his daughter's. but those eyes held something she recognized all too well, the hollow emptiness of someone who'd lost everything that mattered. "Daddy!" Emma bounced toward him. "We were just telling Miss Margarita that you've been sad lately and—" "Emma!" His voice carried a warning, but Margarita caught the way his jaw tightened, the way he avoided her gaze. The twins had struck too close to truth. "Sorry about that," he mumbled to Margarita. "Kids say the darndest things. You can start in the kitchen today." As she scrubbed the farmhouse sink, Margarita couldn't shake what she'd seen in David's face. 3 years of widowerhood had carved deep lines around his eyes. The house felt hollow despite its size, family photos gathering dust, children's laughter echoing too rarely through rooms that once buzzed with a mother's love. Through the window, she watched David working with his horses, movements mechanical and joyless. The twins sat on the porch steps, whispering and pointing between their father and the kitchen window where Margarita worked. "Lord, what are you trying to tell me?" she prayed silently, scrubbing harder. Her own reflection in the window showed a woman society had written off, 42, widowed, overweight, cleaning houses to survive. Who was she to dream of belonging somewhere like this? But as David walked past the kitchen window, their eyes met for just a moment. In that split second, she saw it, the same desperate loneliness that kept her awake at night, counting coins and wondering if tomorrow would be the day she finally lost everything. 2 broken hearts, recognizing each other across the divide of social class. 3 days later, Margarita arrived at the ranch to find chaos. Grace sat on the kitchen floor, tears streaming down her face, while Emma paced like a caged animal. David stood helplessly in the middle, looking like a man drowning in his own home. What happened? Margarita dropped her supplies and knelt beside Grace. "Emma got in trouble at school," Grace sobbed. "She punched Tommy Henderson because he said we don't have a real family without a mama." Margarita's heart clenched. She looked up at David, whose face had gone pale as winter wheat. "The principal wants to see me this afternoon," David said, running rough hands through his hair. "I don't know what to tell her anymore. The girls are acting out, their grades are slipping, and His voice cracked. "I'm failing them." "No, you're not," Margarita said firmly, surprising herself. "You're a good father trying to do an impossible job alone." David's eyes met hers, and for a moment the walls he'd built around his heart seemed to crack. "Sarah used to handle all this. School meetings, girl problems, everything. I'm just a rancher who knows cattle better than children." Emma stopped pacing. "We miss having a mama," she whispered, so quietly Margarita almost missed it. The silence stretched heavy between them all. Margarita felt something shift in her chest, a protective instinct she hadn't felt since her own dreams of motherhood died with her husband's debts. "Maybe," she started, then stopped. Who was she to offer advice? A housekeeper counting coins to buy bread? "Maybe what?" David asked, genuine desperation in his voice. "Maybe the girls just need someone to listen. Really listen." She looked at both twins. "Y'all are hurting, and that's okay. But punching kids isn't gonna fix the hurt inside." Grace crawled into Margarita's lap like she belonged there. "You smell like cookies and sadness," she said matter-of-factly. David almost smiled. "That's the strangest compliment I've ever heard. For the first time in months, something that felt almost like hope flickered in that broken kitchen, but outside storm clouds were already gathering in more ways than one. 2 weeks passed, and Margarita found herself arriving earlier, staying later at the ranch. She told herself it was just about the money. David had started paying her directly instead of through the service, which meant more cash for groceries. But deep down, she knew the truth was more dangerous than that. The girls had started running to greet her each morning, chattering about homework and playground drama like she actually mattered. Emma showed her a drawing of their family, 4 stick figures holding hands in front of the ranch house. Grace had started braiding Margarita's hair while she folded laundry. "You're different when she's here, Daddy," she'd heard Emma tell David one afternoon. "You smile with your eyes again." That scared Margarita more than her empty bank account ever could. Today, David found her crying in the laundry room, clutching an eviction notice that had arrived in her mailbox that morning. 30 days. That's all she had left before losing even her tiny apartment. "Margarita!" His voice was gentle, concerned. "What's wrong?" She tried to hide the paper, but her hands shook too badly. "Nothing, I'm fine. Just tired." "You're not fine." David stepped closer, and she could smell his cologne mixed with honest sweat. "Talk to me." "I can't." The words came out broken. "You don't understand what it's like to lose everything, to have people look at you like you're nothing." "Don't I?" His voice turned rough. "When Sarah died, this whole town watched me fall apart. Watched me fail at raising my girls, fail at keeping this ranch profitable. You think I don't know what it feels like to be judged? Their eyes met, and something electric passed between them. Understanding, recognition, something that felt dangerously close to love. We're both drowning, Margarita whispered. Maybe, David said quietly, we could help each other float. Outside, the twins pressed their faces against the window, watching their father and the woman who made their house feel like home again. Their secret plan was working better than they dared hope. But in town, tongues were already starting to wag. The whispers started at Henderson's Market on Tuesday morning. Margarita was buying bread with her carefully counted coins when she heard Mrs. Patterson's voice carrying across the produce aisle. That cleaning woman is spending an awful lot of time at the Morrison Ranch, if you ask me. Well, I heard she's been there past dinner time, came another voice. Poor David, probably doesn't even realize what she's after. Margarita's cheeks burned as she pretended to study the price of milk she couldn't afford. The words hit like physical blows, each one confirming her worst fears about what people thought of her. A woman like that, Mrs. Patterson continued, desperate and overweight, probably sees dollar signs when she looks at that ranch. Margarita's hands trembled as she paid for her single loaf of bread. The cashier, barely 18, looked at her with uncomfortable pity. Everyone knew, everyone was talking. At the ranch that afternoon, she couldn't meet David's eyes. The twins sensed something wrong immediately. Why do you look sad again? Grace asked, climbing onto Margarita's lap as she folded laundry. Just tired, sweetheart. But David wasn't fooled. What happened? Nothing, she lied, but her voice cracked. Margarita. He said her name like a prayer. Tell me. The truth spilled out between sobs, the whispers, the looks, the cruel assumption that she was some desperate woman trying to trap a wealthy man. David's face darkened with each word. Those people don't know you, he said fiercely. They don't know how you've brought life back to this house, how my girls smile again because of you. But they're right about one thing, Margarita whispered. I am desperate. I am just the cleaning lady. What business do I have dreaming of belonging somewhere like this? Emma and Grace exchanged worried glances. Their perfect plan was falling apart because of mean grown-ups who didn't understand that love didn't care about money or social status. Sometimes, Emma announced with 9-year-old wisdom, grown-ups are really stupid. Despite everything, that made Margarita smile through her tears. But the damage was done. The poison of public opinion had already seeped into her heart. Friday evening, Margarita stayed late to help Grace with a school project about families. The house felt different in the golden hour, warmer, more like a real home than the showcase it had been when she first arrived. David found them at the kitchen table, Grace's small hand in Margarita's as they glued family photos onto poster board. The twins had insisted on including a picture they'd secretly taken of Margarita braiding Grace's hair. This is my family, Grace had written in careful 9-year-old handwriting. Sweetheart, Margarita said gently, I'm just the housekeeper. Maybe you should use a photo of just you, Emma, and your daddy. No, Grace's voice carried surprising firmness. You're family now. Families aren't just blood. They're people who love you even when you're sad. David cleared his throat from the doorway. Girls, go get ready for your baths. Margarita and I need to talk. After the twins reluctantly headed upstairs, silence stretched between them like a tightrope. David sat across from Margarita, his calloused hands flat on the table. I can't do this anymore, he said quietly. Margarita's heart shattered. I understand. I'll finish out the week and... No, his voice was fierce. I can't pretend I don't care about you anymore. I can't act like you're just the housekeeper when you've become the heart of this home. Their eyes met across the table, and years of loneliness and fear crumbled between them. David, we can't, Margarita whispered. The whole town thinks I'm just some desperate woman trying to trap you. Your family, your reputation, I don't care what they think. He reached across the table, covering her work-roughened hands with his. Sarah's been gone 3 years. 3 years of just existing, not living. You brought us back to life. I'm nobody, she said, tears flowing freely. I count coins to buy bread. I lost my house, my dignity, everything. You're everything, David said simply. You're the woman who makes my daughters laugh again. You're the one who turns this house into a home just by being in it. He stood and walked around the table, pulling her into his arms. And there, in that kitchen that had witnessed so much pain, they finally stopped fighting what their hearts had known all along. Sunday morning at Riverside Community Church felt like walking into a lion's den. Margarita sat in the back pew trying to make herself invisible, but she could feel every pair of eyes boring into her. The whispers had grown louder over the weekend. David had asked her to sit with his family, but she'd refused. "Not yet," she'd whispered. "Let me prove I'm not what they think I am first." Pastor Williams spoke about love and acceptance, but Margarita barely heard him over the judgmental stares. During the fellowship hour, the attacks came swift and cruel. "Some people have no shame," Mrs. Patterson announced loudly near the coffee table, preying on a grieving widower and his poor motherless children. Margaret Henderson nodded vigorously. A woman like that, desperate, no family, no prospects, of course she'd set her sights on David Morrison's ranch. "Those poor little girls," added another voice. "They don't know any better, but David should protect them from someone just looking for a meal ticket." Each word felt like a physical blow. Margarita's hands shook as she quietly gathered her purse and headed for the door, but Emma and Grace had heard everything. "Stop talking about Miss Margarita like that." Emma's voice cut through the church fellowship hall like lightning. "She's not mean. She loves us." "Emma, that's enough," David's deep voice carried from across the room as he rushed toward his daughters. "No, Daddy," Grace joined her sister. "They're being cruel. Miss Margarita makes us happy and you smile again when she's here." The entire fellowship hall fell silent. David's face was pale as he looked between his defiant daughters and the shocked congregation. Then his eyes found Margarita by the door, tears streaming down her face. "Girls, we're leaving," he said quietly, but the damage was done. As they walked to the parking lot, Margarita knew this was the beginning of the end. Love wasn't enough to overcome the weight of an entire town's disapproval. "I can't do this to your family," she whispered to David. "They're right. I don't belong here." The twins watched in horror as the woman who'd brought joy back to their lives began to slip away. 3 weeks later, Margarita was gone. She'd left town quietly, taking a cleaning job in the next county, sleeping in her car when motels were too expensive. The twins had cried for days, refusing to eat, barely speaking to their father. David had become a ghost in his own home, mechanically going through the motions of ranching and parenting while his heart died a little more each day. The house felt hollow again, maybe worse than before because now they all knew what happiness looked like. But Emma and Grace Morrison weren't giving up. On the morning of the annual Harvest Festival, they put their secret plan into action. While David was in the barn, they called Margarita's old cell phone number until she finally answered. "Miss Margarita?" Grace's voice was small but determined. "We need you to come home." "Sweetheart, I can't." Margarita's voice was thick with tears. "Your daddy's better off without—" "No, he's not." Emma grabbed the phone. "He cries at night when he thinks we're sleeping, and we haven't smiled in 3 weeks. Neither have you, I bet." They were right. Margarita had been existing, not living, counting the same coins in an even smaller apartment, missing the family she'd found and lost. "The whole town's gonna be at the festival tonight," Grace said. "Everyone who said mean things about you. We got a plan." That evening, the entire town gathered in the community center. David sat alone while the twins fidgeted beside him, constantly checking the door. When the microphone crackled to life for the evening's speeches, Emma and Grace exchanged a look and marched to the front. "We got something to say," Emma announced to the shocked crowd. "You all were mean to Miss Margarita," Grace added, her voice carrying across the silent room. "But she's the best person we know. She makes our daddy smile and us feel loved," Emma continued. "And if y'all can't see that, then you're the ones with problems, not her." The crowd murmured uncomfortably as David rose from his seat, his face a mixture of pride and panic. But then the community center doors opened and Margarita walked in, wearing her Sunday dress and carrying more courage than she'd ever possessed. The twins had called her home. Now it was time to fight for her family. The community center fell silent as Margarita walked down the center aisle, her heart pounding like thunder. Every eye was on her, some curious, some hostile, others filled with shame. David's face showed pure relief and love. "You came," Emma whispered as Margarita reached the front. "You called me home," Margarita replied, taking both girls' hands. David stepped up to the microphone, his voice shaking but determined. "Y'all have had plenty to say about this woman behind her back. Now I'm going to say something to your faces." The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Mrs. Patterson's face was red with indignation. Margarita lost everything when her husband died. Her home, her security, her dignity. But she never lost her heart. David's voice grew stronger. "She came to my ranch as a housekeeper and became the mother my girls needed, the partner I'd given up hoping for." "David, you don't understand," Mrs. Patterson interrupted. "People like her." "People like her what?" David's voice cut through her words like steel. People who work hard? People who love children that aren't even theirs? People who bring life back to broken homes? Margarita stepped forward, finding her own voice. I know what you'll think of me, the desperate woman who trapped a good man. But love isn't about money or status, it's about choosing each other every single day. We choose her, Grace announced loudly. She makes the best pancakes and braids our hair and listens when we're sad. And Daddy laughs again when she's around, Emma added. Real laughs, not the fake ones he used to do. David took Margarita's hand. I'm asking this woman to marry me, right here, right now. Not because she needs rescuing, but because we're better together than apart. Tears streamed down Margarita's face as she whispered, yes. The twins cheered, and slowly, applause began to spread through the crowd. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. Love had won over prejudice, at least for tonight. 6 months later, at their simple courthouse wedding with Emma and Grace as witnesses, Margarita Morrison finally found her home. Sometimes the best families aren't born. They're chosen by hearts brave enough to love against all odds. This incredible journey of Margarita and the Morrison family proves something that our society often forgets. True worth isn't measured by your bank account, your dress size, or your job title. It's measured by the love you give and the lives you touch. Margarita went from counting coins for bread to building a family that chose her, not despite her struggles, but because of the strength she showed through them. How many times do we let other people's opinions dictate our dreams? How often do we shrink ourselves because we think we're not enough, not thin enough, not rich enough, not successful enough? Margarita's story reminds us that the right people will love us not for what we have, but for who we are. Emma and Grace saw past society's shallow judgments and recognized a mother's heart. David saw past economic differences and found his soulmate. Sometimes the most broken people create the most beautiful families. Here's what I want you to think about tonight. Are you letting fear of judgment keep you from the love you deserve? Are you shrinking your dreams because someone told you that you don't belong? Or worse, are you the one whispering cruel words about someone else's journey? Remember, every person fighting to survive, every person counting coins, every person starting over, they all have a story. They all deserve compassion. What walls are you hiding behind that are keeping you from your own happiness? What would happen if you had the courage of 2 9-year-old girls who simply chose love over society's rules? Don't let this story end here in your heart. Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell, because every week we bring you stories that will challenge you to live with more courage, love with more freedom, and choose hope over fear. And speaking of incredible transformations, you need to watch what happens next. Click on the video appearing on your screen right now. The overweight woman humiliated by her sister-in-law lost 104 of their obese. The entire family changed when... You won't believe how one woman's determination to reclaim her life transformed not just her body, but her entire family's future. Trust me, you don't want to miss this powerful story of redemption and revenge that will leave you cheering. Your story isn't over. Your best chapters might be waiting for you to find the courage to write them.